smiling and energetic, so it means that the food was good, not too heavy. So we're up and running. And we would like to welcome our next speaker, Juregen Allgayer from Google and YouTube. Jurgen is our return guest, so we would love to have you back this year as well. He traveled all the way from the valley, from San Francisco, and he's going to talk about innovation at Google. So he will start with the presentation, and later we'll have a panel discussion. We'll ask some more panelists to join us. The floor is yours, Jurgen.
Hello, welcome everyone. I was expecting to use the online version of this and had to create a PDF that fits on the stick that could be used. So, but it does work. Welcome everyone. 2 sentences about myself. I am part of YouTube, as you could guess from this nice little picture that is quite old. My responsibilities in YouTube are very unsexy and usually not on the surface. I'm responsible for what we call engineering productivity, developer environment, infrastructure for our own people, more so than for US consumers of the service. I also am managing a team of about 100 people. So as I go into what innovation means for me or YouTube or Google, it will be mainly from these 2 aspects. One, what does it mean for me as a manager? And one, what does it mean for me as the one who has to provide the infrastructure for everyone to be able to quickly turn around ideas, validate them, test them, get them out, and someone else or the inventor make the decision whether this is good enough to make part of the service or whether we have to go back to the drawing boards. So, as everyone else, I think, my first reaction to the question is, what do we do in terms of innovation at my group, was to say, okay, what is that thing that's called innovation, right? This is supposed to be, you have to use your imagination now, it's supposed to be a magnificent chart that one piece comes in after the other, and you can do this yourself in your mind. It's trying to collect what I think is a good overview and also a match to the values that I see in innovation and the thoughts behind how to enable that. Launch and iterate is a pretty popular statement from actually the Google founders, with the intent to put stress on being fast with getting something out, validate it, and if it doesn't work, throw it away or do it again but better. But we're not alone on this, with this view. Facebook has pretty much the same statement, right? Do it fast, break it fast, find out yes or no, and then move on. But there's also a couple of other ones that I don't find right now. I like Dyson's, he's the guy with the vacuum, the new type of vacuum. I like his mathematical formula there that says creativity and iterative development. That's what innovation is all about, which I would actually subscribe to. You need both. If you just have lots and lots of ideas, but not an environment in which you can try and error and find out whether it's working or not, the ideas are never going to be the white word. I'm going to call out 2 areas that I think are enablers. And the one is what I call culture in the company or in the group you're working with, which I think has to provide a couple of attributes or values that are important to make this happen. One of it is fun. It's definitely true. If you're not enjoying yourself, you probably come up with less ideas. Also from personal experience. The second one is the infrastructure that enables, at least in a company like mine, where software development is what we do, the necessary infrastructure internally as well to be able to create, iterate, and improve is key. So culture. I think it starts with the people. And the best way to have a great team is to start hiring the best people. What that means is that, let me start with what it's not. I have a history with IBM of 16 years. And the typical hiring process in IBM was that the guy with the biggest pain to meet someone is the one who picks who is going to join his team. And I think that's exactly the wrong way to do it. The better way, in my mind, is to have the people this new person will work with decide on whether he or she is good enough, is a good fit to the team, and will bring to the table what they need. That is also, luckily, the way YouTube and Google hire. We have committee-based hiring decisions. So if you are invited to a day of interviews with either company, with Google, you will have typically 6 interviews. All those interviews will have written feedback to a committee, and that committee will be making a decision based on those written feedbacks. And it allows for, so it has pluses and advantages and disadvantages. Right? So there is a certain bias to a certain type of personality that will join the team, which you can argue from a viewpoint of diversity that may be the wrong thing to do. It does work for us pretty well, because it does ensure on the positive side that I would say 80% of the larger engineering group is all of the same type. Type A, very eager, very fast, pretty smart, and with quite some experience in software engineering. The new person joining will be accepted almost anywhere because of the personality. His or her personality type will fit in almost everywhere, which is not true from what I remember from IBM or from other companies. The second is, so the peer-based thing gives you an unbiased insight, I think, on quality of the person and fit into your culture, into your company. The second thing is obviously that the peers have a much higher level of buy-in into new people than they have, which is someone walks in and for some reason got hired. They are involved, they have their say, and they're, in the end, most of the times, then actually proud to have been part of that process to bring that person in. It's a whole different starting point. Third aspect on hiring, I think it's smart to be, if that's possible, and if you have a large enough organization, to be co-present with the two people that you want to hire, so that people don't have to relocate from Europe to the US to join a company, but that you have locations where you would expect for people to be, which is typically university environments or college environments. So these three are our answer to how we get closer to that ideal of actually getting the best people. Now, what are we looking for in these people is, on top of just basically being a good engineer and knowing their stuff, is to have traits that allow them to do their own thing, right? Have their own ideas and have the right passion and energy behind them to actually try and want to make them real. If you look at the bell curve of people you hire from spread over who is entrepreneurial and who's not, you probably get a rather small part that is a typical hardcore entrepreneur. And I'm not saying you need only those types, right? You do actually need non-entrepreneurs to actually get some work done as well. But you have to have these people in the mix, and those are the guys you have to watch out for and make sure are happy and get the opportunities to do what they're really passionate about, which is drive new ideas and new projects and kick them off and have others finish them. Because these are the drivers of the let the flowers bloom energy, right? In order to have, I'm sure on my first slide, in order to have a good idea, you have to have many ideas. Then pick the right one. And these guys will help make sure that you actually have enough to choose from. What it brings, so this was the plus side, what it brings with it and needs some management skill to deal with is that you now have a huge number of things going on in your company. So you need to have a way to prune the garden, to clean up the garden again every now and then. The way we do that, and I'm not saying it's perfect, but it does work. The way we do this, we have very short cycle reviews where any one of these entrepreneurs can come and present their projects for funding, meaning on top of themselves, they may get full-time resource, they may get others who are interested to share their 20% time in their projects. And the reviews allow some level of influence of what actually will happen. Some influence on which of those many projects you actually pick, make sure they fit to what else is going on, can provide, because on that board typically are more experienced or people who are longer in the company know a lot to provide the pointers to something similar or synergies could be met, etc. Examples for us that were really successful in this, if you know Google News, this was coming out of some of those 20%. If you know Earth and the flight simulator in Earth, that came out of some entrepreneur idea with the iterations behind it. And in YouTube we have the annotations, in the automatic annotations under the videos in many languages. That also was kickstarted as one of those ideas. Another consequence is, because you have so many things going on, you need to make sure that people have a chance to know about all the things that are going on. And it's easy to say, well, talk to people. Right? It's not enough. You have to really provide infrastructure, some methodology of how to enable that and how to keep it going. It has to be honest, it has to be open, it has to be easy to do. What we offer here is we have a database with anything that has more than one person working on it available as a project, and everyone can review projects, research them, if they want to join, do that. The other part of transparency is to make sure that everyone really knows what's going on in the company, so that they have a chance themselves to create ideas that fit into what we know we're struggling with, or where we know we want to grow into, and generate ideas in the right space. And you have to be prepared to accept mistakes. They will happen, almost by definition. If you say, I want many ideas, not all can be good. And it sometimes isn't even the lack of a good idea, it's the lack of good execution behind the idea to actually turn it into something useful. So there is lots and lots of try again, or stop this, move somewhere else. You have to allow for mistakes, hopefully not on a scale. This is a picture of, day before yesterday, I think, one of the vertical catamarans capsized in the bay. So don't wait until everything is ready to find out what's going to happen. Another aspect I think is important is that you know what's going on in the company in as objective a way as possible. Right? So a culture where you only hear what you want to hear, and people are afraid to tell you what you don't want to hear, will not be a culture that is that has a big innovative component. I think I have some experience with that. The more transparent and database your decisions are, the more everyone understands how we got to a certain position and can support it. Because usually they are pretty rational also because of that. While you do this, just make sure you pick the right data to collect. Right? So, of course, you can go off in the wild, and just because data is there doesn't mean it's useful for whatever goal you're trying to achieve by collecting and measuring that data. You get what you measure, so make sure you're getting the next few slides will be about really the IT aspect of that, which is one part of the things I'm responsible for. How do you build a development environment where all these things can happen? Because if you have 500 different projects open with very small population, right? All these people want their own code base or their own way to create, a binary of their code. They want to do it fast. They don't want to be constrained by not having access to resource. Could be CPU, could be storage, could be whatever. Right? So not only from an external point of view, obviously for us, building a high-scale environment that allows the searches to double and the views to double, etc., as we go. Also, that push on creativity and working out the creativity internally puts another stress on the infrastructure. So it cannot be large enough, it cannot be fast enough, it cannot store enough, the usual things hold true. Speed of execution is, I think, a function of how, in the end, how fast you can turn around your coding cycle. We have, over years, it took us 4 years, pretty much since I joined the company, we run this, build a internal infrastructure for our developers that allows you to check in your code, automatically compute what parts of the code base have to be compiled because of that, do that compilation, roll it out into instances of machines, roll out as well the tests, the right tests, subset of the tests that are relevant to the new code, run those, get feedback of how these tests are doing in usually under 2 minutes, which made us decide that you have to do this cycle before you even actually check the code. So it's pre-submit validation. Now, if from all we know, to validate your stuff with all that holds, you can go with it. If not, you're not done. And 2 minutes is, of course, it's never fast enough, but 2 minutes is a pretty good time when you consider you're still on one code base. So all the code is in this. Sometimes dependencies are not clean enough and the resulting delta is quite larger than we want to. But having that fast enough definitely helps to not get bogged down in waiting, right? Because this is the worst thing you can have. Hating someone to wait, have someone wait and hate it on, okay, give me my results, I don't know what's going on. So we are years away from batch processing, but because everyone is used to it, now even 2-3 minutes feel like a lifetime if you sit in front of that. And it helps if you actually listen to your developers. So making sure what they think is critical and a good improvement to the infrastructure is more worth than you having a good idea and pushing it out and nobody using it. So a good way to collect feedback plus ensuring that to some extent that feedback is actually what's worked on in the next improvement of the iteration is very helpful. No one will use what will slow them down. It can be the best tool, the best editor, the best IDE. If they have the wrong learning curve, if it takes away from the cycle time, if it's not, no manual. If it's not intuitive from the first time you look at it, it will not be used. And then there you are, right? Having developed a feature that isn't really worth doing. Okay, so as I said, 2 aspects of what I think, back to 10 minutes, of what I think are important to do this. And the next 5 minutes at most, I want to go a bit over what we actually do and then go down into what that means in terms of infrastructure. So I hope most of you have heard about YouTube. We do have weekly cycles, so every week we push out a new version of YouTube. So most of the week you have actually some new things that show up on the surface that you as an end user see. This is an example of when we introduced channels, which is a while back. We have the ability now that you can create your who are quite lively. TED has grown in a year or so from TED is this technology. I forgot the acronym. Does anyone know what TED stands for? Cool stuff. It's very cool stuff. Yeah, it started out with a meeting in Monterey, south of Monterey, of bright minds to share good ideas. And it was just that. Once a year, they huddled together, everyone found it cool. Until they started, like you, right, recording and stuff and put it up. And it boomed, right? Within no time, everyone heard about it and wanted to see those talks that are, you cannot buy tickets for that, you have to be invited. So they boomed over 500,000 views, which is quite a good number for educational material. Right? After that, you might have heard about Khan Academy, a site that collects basically little clips about math lessons. And someone started out for his niece in India and got into the, probably by now, 3 billion point of view views by now. So we do provide a platform across certain categories. Education is one, music is a big one where people have really high numbers, right? So 600 million views for this guy. This is, you know, if a traditional, conventional artist wants to get to these types of numbers, they sell gold records and platinum records and things like that. And this is, you know, free of charge. Go there, put it out, if it's good, and you're lucky it gets viral. And, you know. This lady isn't doing too bad either, with, you know, 500 million. So it's a platform that allows you with very little cost to express yourself in whatever way that seems feasible to you. Music is one. We have a lot of do-it-yourself material out there, educational material, and cat videos. You probably all heard of cat videos. So just to compare, this is, you know, it's about a year old. NBC Sunday Night Football is one of the most viewed TV events in the States that has average about 20,000 users. That's 20 million users. So these guys on our high end are 10-fold, 20-fold of these. It does reflect the fact that it is by now a pretty mature platform, even in terms of capability to distribute your content. Great. Wouldn't think that the humidity of this level would make you dry. It does. All right, so just a quick overview of the YouTube as a system. We, from the user side, we have about 3 billion site visits a day. We have 65 million unique users, which use obviously go and view them, right? To come to these 3 billion. We push at a good day about 7 terabytes of data. It does not include some of those crazy events like 2 days, like last week, the subscriber jumped out of the capsule up there. That event pushed in those 10, 20 seconds it took the same amount of data, just in these 10 seconds. You pushed 7 terabits per second out, while 8 million people were watching. So this is a regular day, just people watching videos. This is egress. We have about close to 8,000 years of video uploaded every day. We have about 60 hours uploads per. Sorry, that was not uploads. That was these almost 8,000 years is watched. So the equivalent of that amount of time is watched by all these people. About 60 hours a minute video is uploaded. So you can imagine that someone in the background in the data center is just plugging in this to store it. We have 11 million concurrent views typically on a good day. only surpassed by this event last week, where we had in those few minutes about 8 million views, and these are concurrent views. So this is the first time after the Olympics where we really made use of our live streaming server, which is a new piece of infrastructure we built in the last year that served the Olympics feeds of all events concurrently in parallel at the same time with, I think, in 10 languages. I forgot. In the US, it was a bit frustrating because you had to go through NBC. They had the ownership with the IOC. They bought from the IOC. They bought the rights that they are the only ones broadcasting or offering the service in the US. So you had to go to their site. But in other parts of the world, you just can go to YouTube and watch that. By now, about half of the traffic on the web, not Google, but of the overall web, is video traffic. We surpassed that earlier the year. And so that was an external view of what that machinery does. Internally, for our developers, we have about 1.5. Hang on. This shouldn't be here. Sorry, let me jump forward. No, sorry. I mentioned before, we use only one code base, which has some impact on the tooling we use and also on the size of compiles and tests that we have to run. It has the advantage, back to earlier, the managerial aspect, it has the advantage of extreme transparency. Everyone can go on every piece of code, have a look, and say, look, there's ways to do this better. And go there and do it better if they have the time. Every week we do a release in YouTube, which has obviously bug fixes that we found, but most of the time also has a handful of new improvements and features. We have about 1,000 code submissions a day from the 550 engineers that we have that are YouTube. So everyone has about 2 submissions a day, 3. About 500,000 of those will cause tests to be run. And those are, as I explained before, right? No one has to set up a test environment, at least for the small and medium tests. No one has to set up a test environment. It happens automatically. It happens on all the relevant platforms that we use, which is mainly a browser statement, obviously, because we're a cloud service. And it does include a growing number of mobile devices. Right? So the iPhones and Androids, but also those smaller ones that are still around. Plus, YouTube specifically, we have Xbox and PS3. We are on TVs, so there's a whole set of devices that are beyond the PC and the desktop to be validated, and all this happens in rather quick cycles. The group that does this for the engineers is rather small. We have about 10% of the team works on internal things to enable that system, so that the other 90% can quickly churn out code. This is what I'm currently looking on as a challenge. Right? So when you look at streaming out, how do you make sure what you see at the other end, that your PC is actually of good quality, is synchronized between audio and video, doesn't have buffer times or only acceptably small buffer times in the beginning before you restart, etc. Oh yeah, and this is an interesting one. How do you load and stress test the system that has 8 million concurrent streams? I don't know an answer to this other than let's try it. So back to the summary. I think we have 2 pieces that, if we do them right, will increase the amount of innovation we can realize in a group. Some of them are how you set up the team, how you second is you have to have a pretty good infrastructure for them to actually use to quickly turn around their idea, validate that they're good ones, and launch. With that, I want to remind you, you also need the people to do all this. And so only managers and only the infrastructure won't be enough. Hire the people. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Juregen. Any questions for Jurgen? Yes, we're on the panel together. So Jimmy, Fred, and Morten, can you join us? Any questions for Jurgen while we assemble the panel?
Jurgen, thanks, it was great. I don't know if you've heard the term inner sourcing, but it was coined, I think, by Tim O'Reilly a few years ago when I was talking about applying open source development techniques inside companies. And as you started talking about one code base, visibility, and transparency, and everybody knows about the Google 20%, would you characterize the style of development inside of Google, or at least some of it, as being open source style development?
I would say open source style, yes. Two reasons for this. One is we have a pretty sizable subset of the engineers who actively participate in open source projects, so they are used to that style of work. And I think that the design of our process around reviews from the beginning, peer reviews before check-in, which is necessary, otherwise you can't get the code, are derived from good practices from that group. But I think the active participation in the open source projects that I would say 20% of the people do helps to keep all this alive, right? Because good experience will be spreading, and you improve the culture, the quality of the culture in that aspect.
Alright, before we continue, I guess most of the faces here are now well known to you, but I wanted to introduce another panelist, Morten Amundsen from FriProg in Norway. Maybe you could say a couple of words about yourself, and then we'll give you the one question we want you to debate.
Well, thanks. I'm coming from the National Center for Open Source in Norway. Been around since 2008, trying to influence on the public sector especially, but also on the private sector. I've been working with, I think, open source since, well, 1988, something like that. Especially with internet technology, partial, of course, with that. And I realized when I looked back some years ago that open source has been the key thing I worked about, not realizing or thinking about it.
Thank you. So the question, the one simple question we really have is that we are obviously in Excel and this conference making a connection between open source, open innovation, and innovative behavior. So we're basically asking the question, how can open source drive open innovation? Is it so, or is that an assumption that is incorrect? We have our own answer to this, but we'd like to hear the views from the panel. We want to start.
It's usually easier than to stay quiet. I think yes, it can. And my view on why it is the case is the following. Typically, so let's take your example as the blueprint for the architecture and the reference implementation. If you have that, it has several implications for that. So one is that for the area you built this for, it probably will be a catalyst that brings together parallel development streams into the focus of roughly around 1. And by that, you have this a couple of times, you save money, you have time to spend that money on more interesting things or new things. And so I think once everyone gets this, they will accept that by in other areas. The second part, though, is that almost like a side effect. Right? Once this new idea is there, it spawns off other innovative ideas in areas it wasn't originally meant for. And that, I think, is something that comes more frequently with open source ideas and offerings than it comes with off-the-shelf library things, because you never get to that layer in the first place. So before we talk about reuse of the architecture in a completely different setting, energy in the house, but yeah, I think that's what is the first one.
I would also agree with the idea that open source encourages open innovation. For me, I look at it as, and I've used this analogy before. I see developers as people who are passionate about doing things, about being creative, and their media of choice just happens to be code. And so, anytime you get a bunch of passionate, creative people together, then I think that innovation is just the logical outcome of that. I think it's hard to not get innovation when you give people the freedom to express themselves, but also the feeling of a community and the ability to bounce ideas off of other people as well. And I think that the community aspect of it, which is one of the core parts of what open source is about, is one of the main drivers behind enabling really inventive, quick, disruptive innovation, not just traditional innovation, but the kind of innovation that people have never even thought about before.
I have a second one, which is not so much open source as the base, but free. Right? Free software, or I want to use YouTube as an example. Right? It provides a free platform to express yourself. And I think that, going back to 5 years it exists, no one would have expected the variety of things that happens on the YouTube platform today. From do-it-yourself explanatory posts that are making up a huge amount of our store. There is the educational part of the Khan Academy that is really getting a full curriculum together and in general spearheaded the movement of the universities to go out there and offer their courses for free or for less. So, not open source, but free platforms to do things will trigger people to come up with ideas of what you can do with these free things that are
If I may share with you one variant of the answer to my own question, we actually believe that, as we said initially, if we have a community-owned domain-specific middleware that will take care of 80% of everything that everybody has to take care of, you simply get more time to be innovative. So it's a very simple thing. I mean, we have studied almost all marine electronics that is available on the market for the leisure craft sector, and a good chunk of what's available in the commercial sector, and definitely more than 75%, if not 80% of the development effort in all of these companies is spent on exactly the same thing. So there's no competitive edge whatsoever in what 80% of the R&D budget used for contrary to what some of the executives say. This is the actual fact. But then the question is, what happens if you all of a sudden have all of that for free or community free? It's maybe a little wrong to say it's for free, because if you drive in the community, you have to 70% of it for free. It's incredible what you can do in those engineering hours, and you can start your own ID competition. You can ask your smartest, youngest, or your oldest, wisest people to just implement the system of their dream. We ran across a very interesting situation a couple of weeks ago when I got in contact with the Danish Coast Guard, because they had some ideas in a project called Axes that they wanted to demonstrate. They are not navigation developers, but since open maps are available, they can get some university students in Denmark to develop a demonstration tool that can actually show exactly what they have in mind. Without open source, this wouldn't be possible. They would be clumped down by the infrastructure development, so they would never put it in motion. That's how we see it. Okay. Final comment from anyone, because we're running somewhat late. That's good.
Just a small comment here. I believe that if you are successful in producing a platform for e-navigation, that platform can be used for many other purposes. And it opens up a marketplace for ideas that is just not available right now. It's just not going to be there. But think about an app store of applications that you could use on a ship, not just for navigation purposes, but other things that are going on. So it's a key step, a very key step to reach.
Okay, so thank you very much, and we are ready for the next speaker. Thank you. Yeah, comment on.
Sorry to keep you off the call.
I think you just mentioned the important piece that we haven't really explicitly called out before, which is the data aspect. So open source in terms of code is kind of the default thought, but open data in the sense of geodata or any others is something that we need much more of.
Because in my head, open source is one part, small part, just one part. And we're talking about open standards, we're talking about open data. But over that, we have to talk about open mentality. Every organization, every company needs to have an open mentality to put the data out open, or to prevent open source, or to do something with open standards. So I think that's also a very important aspect to have it. Open mentality.
Back to the culture. That's we've seen it already in our sitting set. We had we have two ship professors that are very far from the sea, coming up with a rather innovative new idea that we actually believe holds some merit. And in one of our webinars, they uploaded the whole idea straight from the public web, and we said, "Are you really sure you want to do this?" Yeah, sure, it's open source. So that's how it goes. Okay, thank you very much.